Welcome to Law Easy. My name is Marty Shenkman. I'm joined by insurance consultant Bill Boersma, and we're going to do a primer, mostly you're going to do a primer, on life insurance basics. Life insurance is absolutely one of the most fundamentally important cornerstones of most people's financial and estate plans. For young couples, it may be the absolute foundation of security for your family. As you get on in years, if you have a family business, real estate holdings, it may be essential for liquidity regardless of tax issues. So let's skip tax issues completely. Let's talk about insurance fundamentals. What do people really need to start to think about so when they're evaluating life insurance, they get it right?
Well, I'm going to go straight to the number one question that I get from my clients once I have reviewed a policy, which is very important, and it's not doing what they expected. They said, why? Why is this not panning out the way we were led to believe? And the one thing that I've come back to them with is what I consider the most simplistic analogy that I can come up with. Life insurance can be very analogous to retirement planning. With retirement planning, hypothetically, you're earning more than you are spending. You're taking the extra, you're putting it in a pot that earns money, so in the future it's subsidizing you. Life insurance, you are paying more than it costs today.
The term.
Yes. The excess is put into a pot, which grows, so in the future it subsidizes those higher expenses.
When you're older.
When you're older. So if you understand that analogy, and then furthermore, with your retirement planning, if you did all of your planning at a point where you were comfortable with the 10% rate of return, but now you're only getting 6%, nobody believes that everything's going to pan out. Life insurance is
you got to adjust your expenses.
You got to adjust. You have to either increase your funding or reduce your expectation.
Right.
With life insurance, it's the exact same thing. Even on a more traditional whole life policy or any kind of fixed policy, let alone the market-based policies, you have a life insurance policy that was put in force with higher assumptions. It is not getting those assumptions today.
It may not be.
It may not. You're absolutely right. Some of them are. Most of them over time have not. And so you have to increase your funding or reduce your expectations.
I think that's a fundamental issue that I find most consumers do not understand. But the insurance agent said if I pay X dollars, I get this death benefit, and that's all I have to do. It is not carved in stone. It changes over time. And the key is you got to monitor it.
There are policies that work more like that, and there's policies that work less like that. And I've also seen the consumers not understand which policies fall into which camps.
And since your circumstances change, I'll go by you got to monitor it.
You've got to monitor
Something
it.
changes. Nothing stays the same.
Everything, your personal circumstances, the markets, everything changes.
Tax
You have
system,
to monitor it.
What kind of things should people be looking at in terms of insurance basics so they can get it right?
In terms of the absolute basics, well, as we discussed before, why do you have it? Okay, let's do business with quality companies. Let's make sure that we're funding it right. How do I know I'm funding it right? Let's look at some private modeling and testing. But largely it comes back to what are you trying to accomplish? And as I've been fond of saying, there's no such thing as bad life insurance. There's just life insurance done badly. Okay? The variety of life insurance is out there for a very specific purpose and reason. Let's make sure we find the one that aligns with your objectives and then build it right, because there's no such thing as hitting a button and saying this is what it costs. You have to build it appropriately.
Which we have another video clip talking about. What other basic concepts are there in insurance that people need to understand? Is there any control that the consumer has once the policy is purchased? What can they do?
Oh, that's a great question. In fact,
if it's getting off track, what do I do?
Many times I'm having conversations with people reminding them of the powers, the inherent contractual powers in these policies that they didn't realize they have. In fact, I have people who want the insurance. It's underfunded and they have to put more into it. They don't have more to put into it, and they don't even realize that they have the ability to reduce a death benefit to get there.
Keep the policy working.
I mean, it's so simple. Okay, there's changes in loan management options. There's changes in dividend options. There's many changes.
Explain something on dividend options, how that might be changed and help a policy.
Well, first of all, you might have put a whole life policy, traditional whole life policy in force back in the 80s when the dividends were double digits. Well, the dividend options the dividend option that you chose actually you probably didn't choose it. It was probably chosen for you, and you didn't understand that. Well, today when that dividend is no longer 10, 11, 12%, it might be 5 or 6%. You need to be potentially changing that option from buying paid-up additions to something else, maybe paying down a loan, maybe doing a number of things that are beyond this conversation.
Very good. What else should consumers understand about insurance before we wrap up?
Something that is seemingly ridiculously simplistic is, in actuality, ridiculously complex.
And what is that?
What's so complex about it?
Yes.
There are more moving parts into it. There are more options. There are more contractual features. There are innumerable aspects of a contract that most people have no idea or even there, let alone how to choose to write.
So if the consumer that hasn't had their policy reviewed in years hears this and realizes, hey, I better find out what's going on, they're presumably going to call their insurance agent who sold them the policy. What do they ask them to do? What do they ask for? What should they look for? What do they want?
Well, first of all, if they're going back to their agent, and we can have a separate conversation about that, they need to have this thing, not just a, hey, what's my death benefit, what's my cash value, but new in-force illustrations, in-force illustrations, where I can see black and white exactly how this thing is doing relative to how it was sold, all the way out through life expectancy and beyond.
And what would you use for life expectancy for a typical person now? 95, 100, 100?
Well, I'm going to use at least 100. I don't really care what their life expectancy is.
No, but you want to see the numbers.
You want to. I'm generally very seldom going to order anything that's going less. I mean, I might have a client who said, listen, there's been no male in my family that's ever lived into his 80s. I'm fine with my policy to live into 90. And if you're willing to sign off on that, okay, I'll do that to 90.
Right.
But by and large, you're looking at 100, beyond 100, lifetime.
Right, but that's important when people make the call and ask for figures. What else should they ask their agent for? And then we'll get to the question of should they only ask their agent?
Okay, well, besides the in-force illustrations and all the modeling, I mean,
Can most agents really do that?
Well, can and will are very different.
Okay.
And maybe this is the segue. If I brought something to the table that's not panning out, how much am I going to want to be able to bring something to the table additionally that shows that this isn't working?
The agent, you mean?
The agent.
So
and again, I'm not trying to throw them all under the bus.
No, but there's a disincentive to make it more realistic potentially.
Yeah, I'm not going to run to showing bad news. Now, a good agent will, but then again, a good agent will have been on top of this on an ongoing basis, so there's never all of a sudden, oh, wow, we're in trouble. Because when it started, nothing gets in trouble overnight. It all started years ago.
And let's use your phrase, a good agent. So a good agent should be contacting their clients periodically and going through this analysis.
Yeah, not just a needs analysis. Do you have enough life insurance? Let's look at this policy. Let's deconstruct it. Let's look at the projections moving forward under current assumptions.
And if a consumer that bought a policy or a trustee that of an insurance trust owning a policy has not had the agent be proactive to do those things, what should they do?
Well, then they need to go out and find somebody.
And what do they look for and how do they find somebody?
A third-party objective consultant who can bring to them the information that they need in an understandable format, who's also not driving to a new commission sale.
Okay. Any last wrap-up comments before we...
I think we covered most of it. It's complicated, and you got to bring somebody to the table who understands it, that doesn't have an ulterior motive.
Thank you for joining us. Please keep in mind, and thank you, Bill Boersma. Thank you, and keep in mind, as I was starting to say, that this is for educational purposes only. Be certain to talk to a consultant before you take any action. Thank you.